Well, here's a video that got very close to becoming a reject because I'm not terribly pleased with it. For one, I ran into some issues during the recording, some of which you'll see, and also it's one of those ideas that seemed good at the time, but then a while later I'm looking back at it while editing and I was like, what was I thinking? This is kind of pointless. But at the same time, you know, what's the harm in putting it up? At least with a disclaimer, I suppose, because I'm sure some people will like it. But yeah, I am going to give you a bit of a disclaimer. This is about energy swords. I say energy swords rather than the L word, because apparently people have gotten into trouble for Star Wars themed videos, which is rather silly, but this is about energy swords in general. If you remember Star Gladiator on the PS1, for example, that sort of thing, you know, be it plasma blades or laser or whatever, this is definitely not Star Wars specific. And the video is about, you know, trying to figure out how one could possibly use them, and especially what some of the differences are compared to metal swords, how you might be able to use them differently or might have to. And this is just for entertainment. The reason why I point that out is because I don't want you to think that it has anything to do with HEMA, historical European martial arts. I mean, it is informed by it because that's what I practice, and so that's what I base my concepts of what sword fighting is like on. But there are a lot of people in the HEMA community who are not really happy about their martial art being associated with things like LARP or fantasy movies, etc. And I respect that. I personally don't have a problem with people doing LARP or whatever, but I also think that those two things should be separated because one is a martial art and another is people having fun. There is a difference, and this is just for fun. So yeah, enough with the disclaimers. So as I said, the video isn't terribly good, but maybe some of you find it entertaining anyway. Okay, so let's see what we can come up with. It's just glow sticks, but we can still get into the mindset of what it would be like if these were plasma swords, energy blades, whatever. Okay, so thanks to Corey for joining in here, helping me out. So the question, of course, is how would these act? There are certain things where we can just speculate about, we don't really know. For example, would they bind up? So first of all, let's turn them on. And so if we strike against each other, the question is, do they bind? Do they stick together? Do they bounce apart? Do they slide or can't they? Lots of things where no idea, depends on what it is. But let's assume they can slide. So in that case, we could actually use rapier techniques. So if they can slide, you can do things like this. You displace the blade to the side, come in for the thrust, or potentially even if he throws a cut at me, I might even be able to just go in directly with a thrust. Considering that these would have either no weight or next to none, this might actually be enough, because you wouldn't be able to generate a lot of force with something that light. I mean, even if you move it fast, it's not going to hit that hard compared to a metal blade. However, we'd still have situations where we might strike a little harder just to make sure. For example, if he is in this guard here, and I would just want to strike his blade aside. Now, normally with long swords, what we do is do this wide sweeping motion to get enough rotation to actually do damage. If that's not necessary because a mere touch already burns into the opponent, then this becomes really more of either a thrust game or just this very quick tap. And alternatively, I could also do things like just walk through, basically, because if it's plasma or whatever, laser, then all you technically need to do, you don't even have to strike, you just need to walk through them and he's gonna separate into two pieces and fall apart. You could use these the way you use metal swords. I would just think that it would be more important to eliminate extra movement because it's not necessary. You don't need to actually do this kind of swing where you follow through and really get a proper cut because, this is really all you need. It's very little movement is required for this to be effective. And so if you were to feint, for example, and then follow up, you could come in here and then just do this.
I died.
Battery dead?
Yeah.
Wait, this one? Oh, you know what? It's probably cold.
Oh.
Because battery capacity goes down a lot in the cold.
That's a good point.
I didn't even think about that. Okay, so it seems like it's just too cold today. The batteries are all dead, even though I charged them right before this. Yeah. So we'll just have to go with white ones. Just imagine they glow. Yeah, great. So one other funny thing about energy blades of any sort would be, with a steel sword, you can intercept the cut and basically just cut the opponent's arm off. So if he throws a downward cut, I just intercept it early enough and cut off the arm. Even if the blade falls towards me, yeah, it'll probably hurt, but it doesn't have the support from the structure that when he's all grounded and uses, especially his core muscles, there's a lot of power behind it. If the thing just falls, then it's going to be like, ow, okay, whatever. With these, however, that would be a problem. If I cut that off and the lightsaber just comes flying towards me, oh, I shouldn't have said the L word, the plasma sword. It just comes flying towards me, then yeah, I may still be in a lot of trouble. Another difference with metal swords, because there is more mass. If he throws a cut and I want to deflect it with a false edge cut like this, it's perfectly possible, but depending on how much power he uses, I have to get it just right. Otherwise, this would just still blow through my attack and wouldn't do anything. With these, because they have either no or minimal mass, this should be quite easy, actually. I mean, with these here, you feel it's pretty easy to just deflect that to the side, and then as soon as we're in that position, all I need to do is this. Boom. And again, I do not need to follow through a lot. I just need to move it down. It burns through. Grappling. This would actually work a lot better with steel swords, because if we come to a bind, say, if this was a steel sword, I could move in here and do that. But this is obviously not an option. So instead, you'd have to control the arm. Also with steel swords, you can do this and strike with a pommel. I don't think that would do enough with these. I mean, depending on the weight, maybe. Another thing that would not work with steel swords, if we are in a bind and let's say I take a gathering step over here and just do this, just slide across his shoulder. I mean, I suppose with a very sharp sword against thin clothing, you could still do that, but armor would be a lot more effective with this. Okay, so because I don't have a guard here, this also changes a few things. Now, with a guard, I can just move in. Now at this point, the guard would contact the sword and just help me. In this case, I would run my own hand against his blade, which is not a great thing. Also, I could do things like this. So even if they don't slide, I could just lift it off very slightly and just go down and just get his thumb. That's really if the thumb is off, he can't hold it properly, he would probably drop it, and then I just step through. The hand is of course very vulnerable. In fact, all I would have to do is this. I'll just step forward and just touch the hand, and he's in trouble. But of course that would expose me to this kind of thing, and now my brain is getting a little warm. Just talk briefly about guards. I feel like a guard like this, where you keep it in front, seems like a really good idea for these, because not only does it keep me covered, it keeps my plasma or energy thing, whatever, between myself and his, but also it keeps it away from me. So it's not, for example, this kind of guard would be a terrible idea. For one, this is right next to my head. Any kind of involuntary twitch or something could lead to me getting roasted, pretty much. And also, now this is so retracted that if he does a very quick kind of cut, this is not going to come around in time. With metal swords, it's not going to be quite as quick. I mean, some people are going to be very fast, but still, a metal sword is not going to move quite as quick as these. So this does not seem like a terribly good idea. Neither does this, because
the Luke
again,
Skywalker.
because again, this is more exposed and it takes longer to actually strike. And especially a guard like this with metal sword, that's fine. But for one, again, this is right next to my leg, so this seems a little risky. And again, it takes longer. I think the most I would want to do is have it here, because that invites him to strike me, and I can still get up in time and react from there. It doesn't take quite as long. We found another example where this works a lot differently than steel would. So if we go through this sequence here, what he can do after he's displaced my blade, he can cut right down on my finger. So if I want to avoid that, I come in here, I see that I can do this. So this would do very little with a steel sword. So, but this is really all I need. So the trick here is, instead of moving my blade around, I'm actually moving the handle. So I'm just doing this basically. And my blade just falls on his arm, which again, with this, it's enough. Half sorry. That would be smart. Ow, ow, ow.